What's up, otakus? It's your tour guide. Let's pull him up my camera here. There we go. So we went to the comic shop and picked up some books. And so let's back up. I hit up 2 places this week. And let's back up before that. Last time I put out the haul video, we were at 302 Jim Lee books. That count got readjusted because for whatever reasons, for example, this is a book that was inked by Jim Lee. So it's really a rare book where you have Todd McFarlane on pencils and Jim Lee on inks, a rare occasion. I'm sure they've had maybe instances where they've worked together like that before, but this is maybe the first time they've actually worked on the same book together. So this was added. We added this one. There's apparently interior artwork of Jim's in this one as well. So our current count is at like 304. And we picked up 4 Jim Lee books this week. So our Jim Lee count is creeping up. We're at 308 for the count. And our book, The Haul, is going to be a Jim Lee book. Okay, so that's where we are with the count. I spent only $3 this week. And we stopped into Mill Geek today. Picked up $2 worth of books, 4 books. And we also stopped at Hill of Comics way over in Auburn. I just stopped in there during my lunch hour. I was actually in there to see what kind of $2 books they had, because they have a thing where you can get 3 books for $5, 3 $2 books for $5. So I was actually digging through the $2 books for a little bit. And then, I didn't find anything in there that I liked. So I just creeped on over to the 30-cent bins. It's actually 3 for $1, so about 33-cent bins. The $3 bins, so the 3 for $1 bins, the 33-cent bins, have a lot of, if you've ever been in Hill of Comics in Auburn, there's a lot of mold and mildew on half of those books. Like, you just don't even want to touch half of those books. And then you have a lot of the cleaner ones closer to the storefront. And those are modern books. A lot of them are raw. Some of them are in bags and boards. And they're like mostly 90s books. Mostly the kind of stuff I like to pick up, the image books. And I figured, you know what? Let's see if they have some Jim Lee stuff. And we dug and we found our Oonmyoung book. And we also found an Oonmyoung book at Mill Geek today. So we're going to get into it. And I just want to preface this is like a 2 Oonmyoung book haul, which is rare. I shouldn't say rare. We get Oonmyoung books all the time. But again, my Oonmyoung book, what I mean by this is like, you have it's a book you have in mind. Like, it's on the forefront of what you want. Like, you've checked online, I checked online for these books, but I knew I wasn't going to get it online. I just was checking the prices to see if it's something worth my while, but it's not. Those books sell for a lot more online. And I just said, hey, we have it on our want list. Hey, what's up, Miss So? Thanks for joining. For the regardless, so I put these two books on my want list, kind of had them, at the forefront of what I wanted, in terms of when I was on a hunt. If we found it, we pick it up. I had these two books very top of mind. In fact, I may have mentioned them on multiple occasions on this channel. And we found them this week. So we got two books that were really kind of on the want list on our radar, and we found them. Now I knew I was going to be at Mill Geek today, so I reached out to Fanboy Prime. Shout out to Fanboy Prime, and I said, "Hey, dude, I'm going to be digging. Send me your triangle books that you're looking for." And he sent them over, and I was looking. Sorry, Fanboy, there's just none of those books were in the. Mill Geek needs to do a refresh of their 50-cent bins because there's nothing good in there now. I mean, I've been there the past couple weeks, and I pretty much, dug every last little worthwhile thing to pick up, and there's just nothing in there, nothing worthwhile. And I look for, Fanboy Prime's books. And he had some obscure books, by the way. The ones he has left on his list, I had never seen those books out in the wild. But we were looking, and yeah, just no luck. So yeah, good luck with getting those books, though. All right, so let's get to the haul. And then we're going to grade these books after I introduce them. I'm very curious about some of these grades. For the most part, they look pretty good. Most of the books. One book is sort of mid to low grade, and that's the book we're going to start off with. So again, Halo Comics had 3 for $1, and I pretty much found the book I wanted. I was like, dang, I got it. The problem was I had to pick up 2 more books. So we were digging, looking for like what we could find. And I found this book, and this is actually what I read. Halo Comics, I usually kind of look up books and stuff as I'm pulling them out. And they had just poor Wi-Fi connection there. So I had 2 Uncanny X-Men books. I was deciding which one to get, and then this latter one, the back cover had just like chunks missing from the. I mean, just not major chunks. It's within our like passable grade passable grades into the collection. And I thought, and the front looked actually better than this, but the overall condition of the book, this was better. But that cover presented better. It just had an issue in the back. And I had the choices between the 2, and I went with this one. Well, I regret this now because the other one is actually a key book worth a little bit more in terms of value. So I'm just like, again, if I'm probably going to go to Halo Comics again soon, that book is still there. We may pick it up, but the condition was just not all that great. And this one is not all that great either, but we've got some John Romita Jr. X-Men goodness. We picked up 187. Again, this was 33 cents. It does have issues. We've got like a corner crease right here. We've got pretty dinged up spine there. So I'm thinking this is like the 354, well, 4.0 range. Maybe in a 4.5, maybe in a 5 range. Between a 4 and a 5, I'd say. Again, we're going to put up the standards for the grading standards from the name's not coming to me. But we're going to put that up and use that to grade this. All right, so our first book, Uncanny X-Men, 187. Just another little check off our X-Men run that we're trying to pick up. Again, I don't know how deep I'm going to get into this X-Men run. I kind of maybe should stop picking up X-Men because I just don't know how our bandwidth for adding these to the collection. I've also come to another realization that I've got an overflow box and I try to keep things within that, but I'm gonna do my best to like maybe add another overflow box. And what I mean by that is like I've got space under my bed. I've got some additional space. I'd rather have the books, I realize, than try to micromanage what I bring in. So I'm not gonna buy like long boxes worth of stuff, but I'm also gonna be I'm not gonna try to temper because I'm laser focused right now, and I like what I'm picking up. I don't want to have to like, cut off at a certain point and say no, I'm just not picking up books anymore. No, we're gonna try to work with the space we have and add as much as we can to a reasonable degree. So we got one overflow box now. Even if it goes over, I feel comfortable we can probably add another short box here and there. And that just alleviates that problem. Moving on. All right, so this we picked up at Millgate for 50 cents. And I basically was saying a couple weeks ago, I bet there's a chance we're going to see Onslaught. Because, we were slotted for 3 seasons of 90s X-Men. Okay. And they have to build some kind of event. They have to battle some very powerful enemy, and I thought the options are Age of Apocalypse or Onslaught, and I said you're probably going to see one of those storylines come to the series. It's either going to be that. I mean, yeah. I think there's a lot of speculation as to what storyline or what villain we'll see. Omega Red is another possibility, but in terms of event, in terms of bringing in Marvel characters, in terms of bringing a larger universe, I think, again, it makes sense they go maybe Age of Apocalypse and Onslaught like they did the comics, or maybe they'll just go direct to Onslaught with all the time disturbances and all that. So with that being said, I picked up a newsstand copy of X-Men Onslaught, which is a one-shot from the 90s. We got a newsstand. This is a wraparound cover by Adam Kubert. Pretty dope Onslaught cover there, if you ask me. We got X-Men fighting him in the back. This is a book I would want. It's a nostalgic book. In fact, this is, I think, one of the last books I read. I didn't read, sorry. The last books I was aware of. I had bought other issues prior to this one. Or leading up to this one that had me in the Onslaught mindset. I knew how they were setting up, There's basically an amalgam of like, Magneto and the darkest parts of Xavier's psyche, and it becomes this like psychic energy being, which when you say it out loud it sounds weird, but when you're like reading in the pages of a comic book, you're like, yeah. So I was wholly looking forward to getting into this series and all that, and then I started the work, and I remember this came out August of 96, I think. And then, I just had to start working soon after. And my life was in such like a huge trend. I was like living on my own. But I kind of was living on my own in some person's house for a little bit. And then eventually moved in with some other roommates. And, I was just making like a base salary at this company. And that's how, and I just totally, yeah, comics were just out of mind. Kind of fell out of everything at that point in terms of hobbies. Like, it was just meeting a lot of friends and going out to clubs and drinking and partying and doing all that stuff. So yeah, it just kind of like the focus was not on books anymore. And then that had continued for many, many years. There were like, random points where I think I did like kind of go out and get like graphic novels or comics that were coming out at the time. Like when these Jim Lee books came, I had to get those. I didn't get the Batman series, but I did get the Superman series. I got that entire run because I just wanted to read Jim Lee on Superman. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, so this is sort of like the bookend of my collecting era. Yeah, I collected pretty much through like 96, 90, like the end of 97, and then that was it. Once I got into work, pretty much like after this book came out, that was the end. So I just thought that's a cool book. I really like, I have the first, I think 2 copies of the first Onslaught. I have other chapters of the Onslaught saga. So, Madureira was doing Uncanny at the time, and that Onslaught cover was just generated so much like, oh yeah, that's what we want to collect, we want to read. And so I remember going out and getting that issue, that being the very last comic book I bought, I think. All right, so this next one is just another addition to the Jim Lee collection, Death Blow number 6. Nice cover there. This is Jim Lee on the story, Tim Sale on pencils and inks. We got a Jim Lee cover. Pretty gruesome cover there. You got some dead people there. Death Blow. Very nice, very nice. All right. Another book. This I just remember this book. This cover. I mean, this cover is just a great cover. It's Scott Clark cover here. Got Jim Lee in the interiors and the story for Stormwatch number 8. And again, for 50 cents, I figured why not just get it in the collection, kind of check it off the list. I'm not a big fan of the Stormwatch series, but I do love Ripclaw, who's from the Cyber Force. And it's just a dope ass cover by Scott Clark. Like, I don't like Scott Clark's work, but this cover here, pretty dope. Good job on this one. Again, it's more Jim Lee work. All right, this next one, and I'm really excited again to grade this one. This is the art of Homage Studios, and it's bunch of pinups and sketches and artwork by the artists of what was then Homage Studios and would become like Top Cow and Wildstorm. And so you have this great Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri sort of collab when they were working together in the same studio. Can you imagine? That's what you have it right here. And then you have like Will Sportatio, Scott Williams, a bunch of other artists here, up and coming artists in image. You know, Ryan Benjamin, Scott Clark, Brett Booth, just a bunch of guys in here doing what they do best. So for me, we picked this up for 33 cents. This is one of the 3 books we picked up at Hello Comics. 33 cents for this book. I mean, it's got a cover price of $4.95, right? So this is a real treat. So we're going to get into this, kind of looking inside at the art. It's a black cover, but again, pretty decent shape for a black cover. So this was a great pickup. Again, it's Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri book. Any of those books where they're working together, they're on the same book. And I know we have a few X-Men books like that, but something like this is really, really, really special. So, you know, I have the Death Mate cover where Jim and Mark did that together. That's a Ripclaw cover. I have Mark Silvestri's signature on it. I'm going to try to get Jim's signature and have that dual book. This is another book that would be great to get both of their signatures on as a project, you know, and even Will Sportatio, Scott Williams. If we can get as many image artists from this Homage Studios who worked on at the studio at this point in time, that would be wonderful. That'd be just great. All right, now we're to the 2 books. Again, this is a small haul, 7 books, and 7 books, $3. What does that work out to? It's close to 50 cents a book. So we spent $3, 7 bucks, about 42 cents a book here. And I love being just right there, like under 50 cents per book. I missed the quarter bins, but we've got 30-cent bins, we got 50-cent bins. And I've been kind of living there these past few hauls. I don't mind it. We're picking up less and less at half-price books now, unless it's a real like big book for like a couple bucks. I'm trying to stop getting these like image books for half a cover now, even though it's still cheap. Like it's half $1.95. It's still $1, right? It's not in best condition. It's a 90s book. We're paying about $1 for it. I'm just like, I've cut that equation out. I'm gonna if it's a 90s book, something from even the late 80s, I'm gonna dig in these other areas for those. And reserve half-price books for maybe some really key, like big finds that slip the sort of the people who work there who price these comics, put stickers and pricing on these comics. All right, so here's our first book of the haul. This was, again, I picked it up today at Mill Geek, and I was like, get the F out of here. It was kind of sitting there raw. I had to kind of just, put it in a bag and board. And we got this, it's a beautiful cover. So let me back up a little bit. This is a cover I actually had growing up. And I just remember getting it um, because of the cover. I remember getting it because of the cover and being very disappointed a little bit by the stories inside. Um, and this was like a period where I was just picking up reading a lot of Batman. And this was just like one of those, oh, cool, we get like, origins of these like three villains. Um, and that was the fun thing about reading about Batman. He had all these he had a rogues gallery of villains that were just as compelling as the Batman character, right? These backstories like Joker and all that. And this was kind of like, okay, let's read about this. This is what prompted me to get the book back in the day. And I ended up, I think, getting rid of this book or something. I just don't remember what happened, but I remember not being terribly attached to this book because I didn't think the artwork was great or anything like that. It was literally just like I got it because of the villains on the cover, and I wanted to read the backstories on these villains, and then just remember being disappointed by the book overall. Um, yeah, and that being that. Now, as you know, well, let's introduce the book now. We picked up DC Secret Origins Special #1, and it's this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Brian Bowen cover. Oh my goodness, that is such goodness right there, such goodness. And this is what I mean. Like I Brian Bowen is an artist, again, like in my sphere of like knowledge. Like I knew he was an artist and all that. I was not a fan of his art or anything growing up as a young person. I was in like middle school to high school to college when I was collecting. Um, and I appreciated Bowen's art on the Killing Joke. Killing Joke was, but that Killing Joke was like, I guess the art just creeped me out. I just never thought of it like his art as like great. I just was just like, man, that's creepy art, and just being like, it's not. He's not my favorite. It's not anything I like. Um, I was into like Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane, just like everybody else. I was kind of into the Marvel guys and um, like Jim Lee stuff, just the flashy kind of, you know, in your face, like character designs and all that. But flash forward to today, and of course, I'm not that little kid anymore. I've matured a lot and all that. Hey, what's up, Alex? Big Blue. Nice for you to join. Um, Now I love Ballin art, and I think Brian Ballin is just one of the greatest artists from this period. I mean, like, I love Jim Lee. I got to give Jim Lee the top spot, but I mean, Brian Ballin is just like, the thing is, like, he's done it. So I'm discovering his work now, and it's not. If I were to fall down that rabbit hole of picking up Ballin, he does a lot of stuff. He has a lot of stuff out there. Like there's a run of Animal Man. There's a run of uh, the Invincibles, or no, sorry, the Invisibles. Is it? No. Anyway, there's a run of that. He just has like a bunch of covers he's done. There's the Wonder Woman, of course. There's just a lot of Ballin stuff. I mean, not terribly, big. We could definitely try to collect it, but what I'm saying is, like, I think we just want to be very selective on the Ballin stuff. We don't want to try to collect it all, but we want to try to collect the good stuff. And man, is this good? This is just like, again, my childhood. I shouldn't say childhood. I was in high school by this time, but my young collecting days. And again, this isn't a cover I really appreciated back then, but looking at it now, it's a thing of beauty to me. And I know it's not worth a lot of money or anything, but to pick this up for 50 cents is just like, we found it today, and I'm just like, yes, because I was like, I was looking for this for the longest time. And if you do find this at like a comic book shop, it's selling for at least $5, right? Something like this. Well, maybe $3, but it's gonna be like $3 to $5 for this. But yeah, just a great find. So far, in terms of value, I don't think we have a lot of value here. These are probably all dollar books by anybody's stretch of the imagination, right? Like this condition-wise is like a dollar book. None of these are really big keys or anything. They're all, these 90s books, they're everywhere. This Art of a Mod, you can find this at half price books on any given day. This one's a little bit of a, I think, you'll find it, but to find it in a decent grade and again, just for 50 cents, you're not going to find it for 50 cents. Well, maybe you could. But anyway, there's nothing in here that like screams like, oh, you got a great, like you found a grail book for 50 cents. No, nothing like that. I know, shout out to, Scotty Vaughn, or S Vaughn. He found a bunch of Dave Stevens books for like $3 a pop. And they're all like really great condition. That dude, that video, man, he got really freaking lucky. That is a huge, like when you talk about like, hey, I picked up, that's a haul video right there. For me, $3 and picking up these books for me is big. But dude, S Vaughn 82 hit the jackpot with the Dave Stevens for $3 a pop. He had some bangers in there too. So, we're always on the hunt for something like that. But again, the Oonmyoung book. This is the Oonmyoung book. And yeah, another Bolland addition to the Bolland collection. Again, we're going to be very selective about what we add. We're not going to add a bunch of Animal Mans or anything like that. We're going to just try to pick up, the stuff that, again, just focusing on that Wonder Woman run and books like this, where the art's just really, really impactful. All right. Awesome, man. Yeah, Uncanny is hot right now. I think everybody's hunting for that 80s Uncanny run. 80s bleeding into the 90s. Everybody's picking up 90s X-Men stuff. And yeah, I have a book. So I have an X-Men book at Milky. I was there last week. I almost picked it up. It was there this week. I wasn't going to pick it up. I'm going to wait till I get a couple more dollars. I can afford it now, but I just want, I'm down to my last, down to my last $12 right now. So unless I get a little bit more money, a little bit more wiggle room, that's not a book we're going to try to pick up. I am going to go hit Hilla Comics again next opportunity I get, and maybe spend $2 or $3 from the 3 for $1 bin book. We're going to dig the 3 for $1 bins and hopefully find some more good Jim Lee stuff. That's what I'm banking on. So I'm going to take a list because they've got a huge selection of, again, Image garbage. Most people think, yeah, I just don't like you'll find a bunch of Wildcats #1s, Death Blows #1s, and again, those are books I'm targeting. But it would have, I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll pick up an extra copies of those. But I'm trying to pick up like like the Gen 13 swimsuit issue, um, things like that. If you can find that there for 33 cents, that's like finding gold. So yeah, the first appearance of Blink is Age of Apocalypse book. I love that's my collecting core right there, the image stuff, the early image stuff, even the mid 90s image stuff, a lot of stuff. I was heavily buying image. I think they just branded it well, and it was just so hot and popular for the 90s collectors. It was just like, if you were collecting at the time, you were reading Wizard. Wizard was your, comic sort of guide to collecting. It like had all the price guides and stuff there. But it also had that, top 10 list or top 20, was it? And they were always like the latest image, or the books from Image or whatever it was. It was like hitting the top 10 as it was coming out. Probably a little bit of a marketing gimmick to get you to buy stuff like that, but it worked. I mean, I was like reading Wizard, and then I was buying whatever it was telling me to buy and enjoying every minute of it. And then the bubble popped. I got out. All right, to the Book of the Hall. This is a book I mean, I'll show you. I'm not gonna, like, I'm always looking at Mercari, and I even made an offer. I could have picked up this book. I made an offer for the book a while back. Let's see if I have it on here. Yep. So I made an offer to 6. So they're not showing it. I think it's sold. The dude had it up for $6, free shipping. So I could have picked up this book for $6 online. I chose to like take it, escalate it a little bit, and I put forth an offer for $5. They didn't accept. I offered the guy on 2 more occasions, didn't accept. I think it's sold, or they took it down or something. It's not available anymore. But that's kind of where I wanted to pick it up, at least like maybe for $5. I know I could pick it up for maybe like 5 plus shipping, which would make it about 10. And I was just like, okay, we'll just wait for it. I was ready to pick it up though. I was really like thinking $6, yeah, maybe, and I was contemplating, but I'm so happy we just waited, because I picked it up for 33 cents. And we picked up, yes, the Homage Studios swimsuit special. You got Voodoo on the cover there with, she's topless. And just, bam, that's Jim Lee. It's Jim Lee goodness right there. Jim Lee goodness. And we picked up another, swimsuit edition a while back. Jim Lee goodness. Have you seen any of the early Eagle comics, Judge Brett? That, yes, and that is something I wouldn't mind picking up. Not the entire, series, but definitely maybe the #1. But that's a great example of awesome ball and work. Yes. But yeah, I'm not like a big Judge Dredd fan, but those covers of those books are absolutely fantastic. I think that's what Bolland sort of excels at. He excels at sort of that dark, creepy, like like the villain. Look at that Two-Face right there, right? He just like excels at that kind of um like horror style artwork, but at the same time, just like he can like transition into Wonder Woman, right? He can transition into like Batman. Um, there's a real sort of like grittiness to all his characters. They're not like polished like Jim Lee, like superhero like esque types. There's just a lot more, work that he's doing with the shading and the tones here, the darker tones. So yeah, it's he's in sort of this league of his own with the way he's able to, and that's, I think, you don't appreciate that when you're reading The Killing Joke. You're not appreciating the art. You're just reading and being like, man, this is a really demented story. And how he goes through and transitions to becoming the Joker, and just those images are very stark. And like, I was traumatized. I will admit, like, I was, not that I was young, but I was like, middle school when I read that. And I think I did get traumatized by it, by the artwork and what happened in that book. And when you're traumatized by artwork or a book, you don't go back and continue. Like that's all. Like, that was a book I would like kind of like, I felt like I was like peeking it because it had nudity in it as well, and it just had these like very adult themes in it, and I was just like, ooh, kind of like, I don't know if I like. I mean, I enjoyed reading it, but I don't, like, there's just something wrong with liking this. And I just always associated Bolland's artwork with like not my cup of tea kind of thing, and I just put it in this box where I didn't appreciate it back then. But man, now today, oh man, I just have a whole new appreciation and eye for his work, and I just love it. So I've been, yeah, I mean, I'm more focused on Jim Lee when I'm in the comic book shops. But again, when we run into something like this, we just gotta, like, for 50 cents, I'm just like, but anyway, we picked up this one for 33 cents. And when I found this, it was raw. It was sitting there raw. The first thing I was like, condition, and it's beautiful condition. I mean, I looked at the back is a black cover with Mark Silvestri, a pinup on there, like a black border, couple spine ticks, really clean. So I mean, we're talking like a high grade book here for 33 cents. So just an absolute find. And let me just talk you through what this Homage Studio swimsuit special is. So Sports Illustrated, all of you know, I mean, I think Sports Illustrated is celebrating like the 60th or 50th year of the swimsuit edition. But in the 80s, they started putting out a swimsuit edition. And, it's a sporting magazine, but every year they'd put out essentially just like supermodels in swimsuits. And it's basically soft porn, right? It's like, I remember like getting it and just being like, yes, like just enjoying the swimsuit edition. But then in 1991, Marvel decided, you know what, we're going to do this with comics. And they put out their own Marvel swimsuit edition with like She-Hulk on the cover, but just a bunch of artists doing their sort of like, sort of good girl, sexy girl, whatever art you want to put in, but putting them in swimsuits, putting them in provocative like poses, and putting out a comic book swimsuit edition for the first time. That would happen in 1991. They followed it up with like a couple additional ones. And then, you know, when the Image came around, what do the guys do? They like, hey, you know, the swimsuit sells. So this was in 94, I believe, 93 maybe. Just a couple years after, again, that first comic swimsuit edition, they come out with their own version, the Homage Studios version, and they continued to put out stuff like this because it was selling. This is the kind of hornball stuff that comic collectors were into back in the day. You know, that's why we have the Shees and the Lady Deaths and all the all the sexy comics. Because the guys like me, I guess. But yeah. Okay. 2 swimsuit issues, Marvel one. The Marvel one is one I want to get. It's a little pricey. And again, we have it on our radar. It's always in the back of our minds to pick up, but we're not going to go out and spend big money on that. I think if we do spend big money, maybe $2 is the max we'd spend. I know it's a much bigger book than that. And again, that's the She-Hulk cover on there is quite incredible. So it's a lot of this kind of stuff, just like pinups of our favorite female superhero characters. That's what I want to do. I want to find them all cheap in the wild, and I think you can. You know, these aren't really like key books by any means. There's a huge print count. Again, you can find them in the 33-cent bin. I could probably, if I went back and dug really, really hard, I could probably find another copy in that 90s bin somewhere. Or maybe this was the last one, who knows, but very nice. All right, so that's that. In fact, I haven't even had the chance to really open this up and look, but we're going to start grading these now, and we're going to get a look into some of these books and appreciate them. And yeah, we'll just start, I guess, kind of, let's see here. Start with some of the earlier books and then work our way up. We'll start with Uncanny X-Men then. All right, just going to tilt this down a little bit. All right, so. All right. Why is my. Hang on just a minute here. I'm going to put some lighting here. There we go. It's a little brighter. All right, so like I said, this is not a high grade book. It's like a mid grade book. It's got a lot of issues actually. So we've got first general gist, kind of like, you know, it needs a press. It's just got this like, there's a crease right there, breaks color. There's just like edge, like dimples and edge. Here you see the edge is like clipped, right? You got another crease right there. This one doesn't break color, but there could probably be improved with the press. The spine, got just a bunch of, color breaking spine issues there. Kind of just all around, it doesn't present high grade at all. So if anything, it's kind of, I think a 5.0 is a good place to kind of land and then work back. Again, this crease here doesn't help it. If we were to press this and getting all the little micro, issues out of the book, there is a big crease down there, but that can press out. It would do us a lot of good to do that. So, I'm just going to put this right now at like at a 4.5. I'm also going to get up the, what is it? All right, so we're going to go to Overstreet and put the grading scale up again. So just get the grading definitions up here. So let's see here. So remember, up to a 1/4 inch crease is acceptable. Now this is a full inch right there, but on a very fine. So on a very fine, a 1/4 crease inch is acceptable. And because this is now a 1/4 inch spine split is okay on a fine. So we're talking about this book is in much better condition than either a spine split or any of that. But because of the crease here, this is about an inch crease. So let's read the 5.0 definition. Very good, fine. An above average but well-used comic book, yes. A comic in this grade shows some moderate wear. Eye appeal is somewhat reduced because of accumulation of defects. That's what we have here. Still a desirable copy that has been handled with some care. An accumulation of bindery defects, minor to moderate cover wear apparent, and minor to moderate creases and or dimples. That's all what we have here. Minor crease right there. Yeah, minor crease. Moderate would be something a little bigger, I think. Spine split, maybe we don't have any spine splits, anything of that nature. So, but if we did have a spine split, up to 1/2 inch is okay, but we don't have that. So yeah, I'm pretty confident this is in the 5.0 range. Again, with the press, who knows? Maybe a little higher, maybe 1/2 grade higher. But man, look at this beautiful John Romita Jr. X-Men. Yeah, this is so my collecting era. That's just great. I do want to go back and get that other copy of there's another X-Men from this. It's another Romita Jr. This isn't Mark Jewelers, but they've got a diamond ad in here. That's just random. So yeah, here's the back cover, right? It doesn't look terrible, but it's got its issues. It got some color break here. No creasing really. That other copy that I left there, the Key Uncanny X-Men book, the reason we didn't pick it up is it's a lot worse shape than this, but only in the back. The front actually looked a lot better than this one because it didn't have any creasing on the front. It just had this chunk missing in the back. So that's why we didn't pick that one up. But I do want to pick that. In hindsight, I would probably pick that one up over this because that is a Key book, whereas this isn't. But all in all, for 33 cents, I'm not going to complain. I got a beautiful Romita Jr. X-Men, Copper Age X-Men book here, newsstand debut for 33 cents. That's a keeper. All right. All right. So moving on, we put that at a 5.0. Should I just plop in the grades as we go along? I kind of wanted to write them down and put them in later so we didn't waste time. But I figure that's not my personality, and I have to do things as we hit them. So X-Men 87, we're going to say it is a 5-0. And it needs a press, so we're going to italicize that. Remind ourselves to press it. All right. Next book we got, this is actually a really high-grade book. Couple spine ticks here. Yeah, we got quite a bit, actually, quite a few right there. We got 1, 2. Trying to look at the camera. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 color breaking spine ticks there. Nothing major. Corners are sharp. No creasing. Looks great. Could use a press for sure. Just show you the back now. This is one of those wraparound covers. Beautiful Adam Kubert artwork here of the X-Men. Nothing against Andy, but I would have preferred an Adam Kubert Uncanny X-Men art run on. I would have preferred Adam to Andy on the X-Men run. But that's just me. All right, so we got the newsstand here. It's a newsstand copy. We've got this great, great cover there. X-Men Onslaught, Marvel Onslaught Universe. All right, so I'll just give you a little preview here. We got some, it's some Madureira art. We got some, who else was, I think Roger Cruz was working on this. There's the Adam Kubert art. Man, this is just 90s goodness right here. This is when Marvel started, they switched to the good paper too, like you got. All right, so we got Vision, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. We got all the Marvel. See, this is what makes me kind of think Onslaught is prime for, because it's good cinematic stuff. You just can bring in all these Marvel characters to help the battle and all that. Look at that. Okay, more Adam Kubert goodness there. There's Onslaught right there. Boom. Yeah. So here's a great. This is the Bone Claw Wolverine. Remember, he got his adamantium sapped out by Magneto during this period. So got this sort of anemic Wolverine running around, who can heal, but he can also break his bones. So it's pretty dope. All right, so I'm gonna put this at a 9.0 with a press, maybe even near. Well, this is right on the border of near mint. I'm gonna put a 9.2. It's pretty much a near mint. Just needs just a little TLC, I think. Maybe with the press, but we're just on the cusp of a 9.2. or sorry, near mint. But we'll put it at 90 for now. X-Men Onslaught. And again, this is just like, this is the bookend of my collecting era. I wish I could say I collected just throughout, my adult life. I stopped, after I graduated college. That was pretty much the end. If I could create my own comic book, what would it be about? Growing up, I, the G.I. Joe story with Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, the fact that they were Vietnam war buddies, they endured a lot of trauma during the war, but their friendship got them through. It was a brotherhood. They're literally like blood brothers on the battlefield. So I think those kinds of stories still resonate with me, like just the bonds that you build with people you endure hardships with. And in this instance, it's war. It's a war that, I mean, this is why I love Larry Hama. He kind of bears it all out in that relationship. Like, they fought for their country, but they came back like they didn't come back heroes. They came back sort of as like people who, they weren't, there was no like parades or, these guys went as kids, like very young kids, and they came back to a country that was just like indifferent to their sacrifice there. And so, these guys kind of, the fact that Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, they're highly trained, like killing machines, essentially, right? And then they go on to, like, one goes down the path of good, one goes down the path of bad, and they just have this sort of dark history and misunderstanding between them. That always, like, yeah, that story just really resonated with me as a comic book story, apart from all this like superhero stuff, because that was like more like of a real story. Like, there's like a real connection you can make to those characters. Like, those were people like my uncle. My uncle fought in the Vietnam War, and he came back really messed up by the war. And I just kind of like took their stories as like his story, but they were, they just were like these ninja, like, special forces type dudes, like badass dudes, right? Who could just fight and kill their way out of any kind of situation. But yeah, just that whole Vietnam veteran story was a real that as a kid you're very aware of that kind of sacrifice and heroism, and it's something that that's why I just love those two characters. They're just complex. They're not just like, hey, this, we're here to defend everybody kind of thing. No, these guys are, they went through a lot, but they're also stronger because of it. So I hope that answers your question. I would do some kind of war. I mean, the Vietnam War is so far removed now. I mean, you're talking these veterans from the Vietnam War now. You know, they're senior citizens now. You know, they're a lot of them have passed on, and um, they're older adults. They're much older adults. So, but I just think, again, I know there's a lot of memorials and tributes to that era, and it was really an ugly war that they endured. But just it was a controversial war. It was an ugly war. No matter where you land or end, those guys are heroes in my book. So I know it'd be hard to do a modern book focusing on a character from that era, but there's you could do something like, I guess, something from Afghanistan. You could maybe focus on it, the Afghanistan, the war there, and something war related where the characters are serving, they're doing heroic things, but you're also pointing to the complexities of war. Just, it's not something I don't think you want to ever glorify war, but you definitely want to paint it as what it is. It's a necessary evil. It's like it's not something, we shouldn't be going around fighting wars, but we do have to defend our ideals. Those are very important things to keep in mind. And I mean, we're kind of in a proxy war right now, so these are very complex times and issues. But I think I would do a war comic book. I know a lot of people right now are like, I think looking at a book like Nam, like a comic book like Nam, again, Larry Hamagoodness there. But that's a great, I mean, I don't want to say it's a great comic book, because it's not really it's like kind of, it's creating characters off of maybe someone's real lived experience on what the war was, but it's fiction, right? And I think, but there's a lot of things you can glean from that comic book. But something similar to Nam might be what I would want to do. And again, nothing. I think Nam kind of, not that it glorifies war, but it does kind of paint this like distorted picture of what I think the Vietnam War might have been, or maybe actually I shouldn't say distorted, but you know what I mean. Like, it's like, it doesn't create this whole picture of how truly scary it was out there, right? It's just kind of going off. Again, those lived experiences and whatnot, but it is like a fictional type portrayal of that. War is just doesn't always make sense. You know what I mean? There's so much, human rights violations and things of that nature that happen. And I think that's what, maybe you didn't see as much in a comic book like that. So those are things you just, maybe through like innuendo that you could kind of assume the worst was taking place there, but it kind of glossed over a lot of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I just think like war comic books, those things are not as popular these days, whereas they were really popular, post World War II and all that. I think after Vietnam, that wasn't like a cool thing to like glorify, and like Vietnam changed our perception of war. But if we could do something, of course, if I was to do a war comic book, it would be violent, gruesome, and a portrayal of why you wouldn't want to be in armed conflict with other countries. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I would never. I don't know. I never want to write a comic book, but if I were to create one, I think I would want to do a war comic book. Speaking of war comic books, Death Blow. All right, we're going to grade this one. I just don't see why this wouldn't be a 9.4. Sharp corners, clean spine. This might have had trading card. We got a little bit of an issue there. So we got some, we got a little bit of that can be pressed out though. Nothing color breaking. A little bit of a spine tick. Again, I'd put this at a 9.4. Great Tim Sale artwork here. Look at this, man. Tim Sale is local to our region here in the Northwest. He made his home here in the Pacific Northwest. Big Mariners fan. And he's also an incredible artist. And the fact that he and Jim worked on this Death Blow book together through its initial run just speaks volumes to the tone they were creating. This is a dark book, this Team 7. This is another sort of Vietnam. These guys are like all Vietnam vets. Look at that. Look at this. Look at that pen right there. Oof. Ooh la la. But like this Team 7, these basically super soldier Vietnam vets, special force vets. This is the kind of stuff like like back in the 90s, I guess 80s and 90s, like it was kind of cool to read war related stuff like this. I loved like Team 7 and Death Blow and all these books. I don't know how these would translate to today's, I guess for like comic book readers like me and people in my sort of, I guess, demographic, you could still market stuff like this to that demographic, but I think the way we just don't want to like glorify violence and death and all that. You just got comic books now focused on just you got stuff like this, like Wolverine battling the Wendigo or something. You just got the PG comics, right, that don't deal with any of that adult oriented stuff. And I don't know, you kind of lose something when it's always like space battles and like mutant powers, and you get a death here and there, but nothing truly graphic or horrifying. I mean, that's a horrifying image right there. This dude got a bullet maybe through the head or something, right? That's pretty cool. Death blow. So yeah, this is a 9.4. I'm gonna put this at a 9.4. We put the X-Men Onslaught at a 9.2. This one's at a 9.4. Well, actually, it did have that issue in the back, but I'm gonna say 9.2 on this one as well. With a good pressing that out, it'd be 9.4. But because of that little ding in the back, I'm gonna put it at 9.2. This is a nice. Actually, for a dark book, it really presents really well. All right, Death Blow 6, 9.2. These books will never be these image books. These early image books won't ever really be worth much, whether you have a newsstand or not. I mean, maybe the newsstands will be a little bit more in terms of supply, just a little bit more rare, but it's such a high print count any way you cut it. These won't ever amount to value, or it won't ever be a high price book. Never. I'm talking like 100 years from now, especially 100 years from now. This book, I'm sure people can read up on what it was, but it will not be on anybody's list of books to collect. I'm pretty freaking confident of that. Unless DC does something to maybe keep these characters alive for 100 years or whatever. I think this particular character, they're not going to want to promote Death Blow when they're trying to sell toys or whatever. You can't bring a Death Blow action figure and try to market that to a 12-year-old or even a 10-year-old, right? No parent's going to be like, oh yeah, let me get my kid a Death Blow with the full battle regalia. So a book like this is a dollar bin book, and it's only going to appeal to people like me, people who were collecting in the 90s and buying this book in the 90s. And the thing is, like, a lot of the YouTube channels out there, right, the guys that I'm watching, they get it. You don't need to like when you say Death Blow 6, oh, I have Death Blow 6 in my collection. They get it. They get why you have a book like this, because it's Jim Lee, Tim Sale, frickin' goodness. And it's like, it's like Vietnam super veterans, like just doing like special ops missions and just wreaking havoc. It's like Punisher on steroids. Okay. So I know a lot of you probably would, like, the younger kids are just like watching this, like, Death Blow. Why the hell would you spend 50 cents on Death Blow number 6? Well, that's what I collect. So you guys can go after your like slabs and all that. Leave me to the 90s 50-cent bins. That's what we have here now. We got another book that will not be worth jack. It's not worth jack. It wasn't worth jack when it came out. It wasn't worth jack today, and it will not be worth jack even 10, 20 years from now. But what you will get is You got some Jim Lee, Scott Clark goodness here. Look at that. Oh. This is what the 90s were about. Just like, you know, kind of just dudes in like really cool. Look at this. Nice Stormwatch claw poster here. He's got dudes in like cool military gear and like futuristic like RoboCop armor and stuff and weapons. Yeah. Pretty cool. This brings back a lot of nostalgia. Gen 13. More nostalgia stuff. These are really crappy books to be by the way. I would never say like go out and read this because it's like the best story ever written. No. Jim Lee and Brendan Choi were not the best writers. A lot of this stuff is just garbage, but man, it's the 90s. It's the 90s garbage that Scott Clark artwork. Gotta appreciate that if you're a 90s fan. And a Jim Lee story. You don't have to appreciate that. Jim tried. And, you know, he was young. Jim was very young when he was working on these books. So I was younger. He was basically writing to kids like me, and I was laughing all this stuff up. You know, what? A mission into, you know, like Tunisia with, you know, some kind of secret super mission with like super soldiers and this mutant dude. Yeah, sign me up for that, all that kind of stuff. So it's the kind of thing the universe we were living as a 90s collector. Didn't have 9/11 or any of that kind of stuff. We just lived in our own little bubble. All right, so this book here, so that last book, I'm going to put it in 9.4. It's a near mint book. Put it in 9.4. Stormwatch. Yeah, you know, I just want to say one thing. I'm grading these books, and recently I watched a video from Mint Hunter Comics. I really appreciate Mint Hunter Comics because he does impart a lot of knowledge he sells comic books. You know, that's his business. He's in the business of selling comic books online, using his channel, using his platform to not only talk about the hobby and promote books and all that, but ultimately to sell books. And you know, he's not you got to take everything he says with a grain of salt, because again, he is in the business of selling comic books. But he said something that really kind of resonated with me, is that right now you have this boom of people slabbing books and buying 9/8 of like garbage books and thinking they were investments and all that, which is not the fault of anybody, but is kind of like where CGC's brand, how people viewed the brand and how people valued having a book in a slab versus having it raw. And a lot of collectors put a lot. I even got caught up in it, and I submitted 20 books to get graded. I don't regret getting the books graded, but do I value CGC like I valued it 2 years ago? No, I don't value CGC anymore, because CGC is ultimately it's something for people who are in a market for buying high grade books. So if you want to buy a near mint book, a comic book, and you don't want, and you're doing it online or you're doing it through your whatever channels, you don't have the luxury of looking at the book in having the book in front of you, grading it yourself, going detail, going in and out of the book, and all you have is the word of the person you're buying it from online or through whatever channel, and their opinion of what the grade might be. So if you trust that buyer, you have a good relationship. Sorry, if you trust that seller and you have a good relationship with that seller, and they tell you it's a 9.4, and you trust that seller because they've sold you books in the past and they've been accurate with the grade, by all means, you buy the book. But the problem is that's not the relationship we have with sellers. So unless the seller has that third party sort of stamp of this is what the grade of the book is, then you're not going to have an idea of what you're actually getting. And that's what CGC has kind of been. They've been sort of that, hey, here's the official sort of price tag on a book, right? This is like what it's a 9.8, no question about it. So you can have faith in paying a 9.8 price for the book. Well, I get the logic of that. I get the logic of having that. There's no debate, right? There's no debate on what the grade is if the whole sort of hobby and industry acknowledge that as sort of the grading standard. But what we've learned is that's not the process that, there's no, that process of grading. It's not there. It isn't being held to any like stringent standard. That's what we've come to learn. There's a lot of holes in that process. So if CGC were really what it was advertised to be, meaning they put the integrity of their grading and their business, they put that's the value of that label and of that grade. If that's truly what it was, then CGC wouldn't be having the issues they're having. What people are beginning to realize is no, like the guys at CGC, not only are they really shady people, they're using this really shady grading scale. They're not being transparent about what the tools they're using to come up with, the standard they're grading. Their grading skill is actually really very ambiguous, and, it's loose. So you're not going to get, I don't think you're going to get consistency. And even if you were to gripe about, hey, I think this is 8.5 versus a 9.2, like, really? Like, by their definition, no, that book probably falls in whatever grading category it is. And even if it doesn't, like, who are you? Who are you to say that it isn't, right? Like, they're the key holders to this. And so what I'm trying to, again, Mint Hunter's point was he's not able to sell slabs at the rate he was selling them before 2 years ago, And in fact, a lot of the slabs he has, collectors just don't want to touch it because they can go out and get the raw book for much less. Like, why would you pay $60 for like a 7.5 of this book when you can pick up the raw book for 33 cents, right? It just doesn't make sense. So you've got all these people that have slabbed books who think that they're worth something, that they're worth more than, they have this like FMV or market value that they think they can get in terms of a sale, right? Like, oh yeah, a price guide says in a graded version of this should be 35 or 60, let's say $60, right? Like this book graded in an 8.5 is $60. That's what the fair market value is. Well, fair market value, to be honest, is whatever someone is willing to pay you for the book. So fair market value on a X-Men 1, let's say. No, let's something even more in demand. Like let's say like the first like Jubilee, first Jubilee, okay? X-Men something. On a first Jubilee, like an 8.5, right? That's a fair market value because that book is in demand and people want to buy that book. And they'll buy it for whatever the grade. But if it's not a book in demand and there's a fair market value attached to a graded book, well, you really have to find the right buyer at the right time to sell that book, or else it's just going to sit. Okay. And I'm not buying slabs. I didn't buy slabs 2 years ago. I'm not buying them now. I prefer to go to my LCS, buy books raw. I bought one slab in my entire life, and it's just because I thought that book is just going to be a big legacy investment down the road. So I saw the value in getting a 9.8. It wasn't expensive; it cost me $100, but I figured that book having a 9.8 is good. But I think slabbing was a bubble. Sure, slabbing big books and having that value attached on a big sale of a book is important. If you want like a Hulk 181 and you are paying big money for that, you want to land on some kind of certified grade. Would I get that grading through CGC? To be honest, no. I'd probably do it through like CBCS. They look like they have a better protocol for grading and authenticating and doing all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, obviously having some kind of professional look over it and grade it through some kind of scale and some kind of system is better than, probably me grading it. But I will say this, okay? Grading comic books is not rocket science. You just need to take the time to learn what to look for, apply that, and it's not hard. Now, are people going to agree between like, a half grade bump down or bump up? Yeah, like if you see a crease that might for you be a little bit more detrimental than for someone like me. For me, I think the worst thing you can have on a comic book is like damage, like water damage and mold damage, discoloration, things like creases. Yeah, they're bothersome. That's not as bad as like actual like like degradation to the integrity of the book. But again, grading is not difficult. So I think, again, if you're going to spend big money on big books, that's fine. If you want to just have your collection in slabs, that's fine. But let's stop pretending that having a book graded by CGC is going to add some kind of real value to it. Because to someone like me, who's in the market buying comic books and spending money in the hobby, it absolutely has no bearing. And in fact, most collectors don't go out with the intent of buying a slabbed book. Most collectors go out with the intent of buying a book in a certain grade and having it raw, and then maybe slabbing it. Maybe slabbing it someday in the future, or if they want a slab in that book. That's kind of I think the way like a lot of people are, you know, they're approaching the hobby. Now, there are a lot of collectors out there who just want to buy 9/8 or want to buy slabbed books because they have the money. By all means, do that. Just don't expect people to pay what you paid for the book, because that's probably not going to happen, right? If you bought a 9/8 copy for, maybe you got a great deal on it. Maybe the fair market value is 300 and you got it for 250. And you're expecting it to sell for 300. You may, and you may not. Okay. Because the same person that's buying in the market, and you know, when you haggled and negotiated that 250 price, they're going to probably do that same thing to you, or have that expectation, or maybe have that where they value that book, even though FMV is there. Every buyer is going to be like, no, I'm not paying FMV for that book. So you're going to go through the same, unless it goes up, you're not going to really make a lot of money on your investment. And if it's a book you love and you have it in the slab and you are willing to hang on to it, that's fine. But if you bought a book like in that manner, thinking, oh, I'm going to sell it maybe a year or two for more, no, that's not how the hobby works. So just, understand, like, you can get books that you like without having a CGC label, or without having someone telling you it's worth this much, when in all honesty, it's not. It's whatever you want to pay for it. Don't ever let a seller tell you, like, hey, this is a $15 book, so you got to buy it for $15. No, it's a $15 book because you say it's a $15 book, but I can get it for cheaper. There's enough people out there with that book who will sell it to me for less than that, much less than that, if I'm patient, right? So that's just sort of I just want everybody to approach comics that way. Like, you don't have to be in the market for high grade books because that's what you see other people doing. Those other people are sellers. They're trying to sell that at some point. It's not practical to be a slab collector. Nothing against slab collectors. It's just not practical. Like, who goes around trying to buy 9/8 of everything? If you're collecting like golden age books or high value books, that's fine, but that's another level of collecting. If you're just trying to get this book in a 9/8 and everything you like in a 9/8, that's a little bit of a fool's. Again, just take a step back, go back to raws, and simplify it. You'll be saving a lot of money and yourself a lot of financial heartache, and plus you'll have more room in your space for your collection, rather than have to lug around heavy slabs that are the equivalent of a stack of books. You'll have actual books. All right, so let's first of all get this great cover. We got lots of, we're talking about Scott Clark. We got Jim Lee artwork here. We've got some Silvestri, some Will Sportatio here on the top. Just a lot of great artwork here on this cover. Let me take a peek inside here and just so it's got some issues. There's a little bit of a fold in the bind where it was opened up, but nothing really color breaking. Corners are still sharp. It looks great. But you can see that little bend in the book there. I'm going to go ahead and put this at like a 9.0 for now. Okay. And the thing is, it's got this like thick cardstock cover, so I can't really open the book all that much. So we're just gonna kind of do like this V presentation here, and I'm just gonna try to show like one side of it. Here we go. All right, so here's this. Whoa, look at that, Joe Madureira. Goodness. That can't be Joe Madureira stuff. What's that? Maybe it's another Madureira. This is 94. He was well established as the Marvel guy. All right, we got some J. Scott Campbell. Gen 13 stuff right there. Look at that. We got the homage, Jim Lee homage to the Psylocke by the swimming pool. There with Zealot. We got a lot of these swimsuit pinups here. We got some Brandon Peterson with Sylvestrian inks. Got some sketches by Silvestri here. It's freaking goodness right there. More this Will Spertatio sketch right there. Some Brett Booth action. This 90s freaking goodness, man. How to draw. This is I think J. Scott. What was that? Who's leading this little tutorial here? I don't think it's anybody in particular. It's pretty cool. Got some comic book, a little bit of some panel work there. Urban show. All right. Boom. There's some Jim Lee right there. Some Jim Lee. Will Spertatio there. Silvestri. So just a hodgepodge of sketches, some panel work, pin-ups, good stuff. All right, yeah. So again, love collecting stuff like this. Love looking through. It's really an art book, right? Just a great art book from this period of comic book innovation. Really neatly packaged as well. I love this graffiti style homage. All right, we're gonna put that at a 9.0. Put that homage studio stuff at a 9.0. All right, we're at the big books now. Art of Homage Studios. Put that at a 9.0. All right, this one, I'm just gonna like, my impression of this is that it's gonna be high grade, but this is it's a, what do you call these? It's a bound book. It's not a stapled book. and it's got its share of spine stress lines right there that kind of break color, I guess. Yeah, they break color. And on a binded book, it's just weird to see that. You can press a square bound book, and I'm sure a press would get some of that out. But for the most part, it's a clean book. It's really glossy. Surface is nice and smooth. You just got some stress lines here along the edge. Again, doesn't really break color except right there in a few places, but the black is pretty clean still. You got a little bit of some dimples here. Let me try to show you. You can see the dimples right there. That should press out. Let's take a look at the back. Yeah. Oh, we got a little bit of a. Yeah, I got a little bit of a kind of a crease right there through the bindery. That's pretty major. So I mean, yeah, it's probably in the 8.5 territory right now. Nothing along the edges that's terrible. Again, needs a press. It's got a little dark stain there, but I don't know. It could be a printing issue. I don't think it's anything it's just from the printing process. All right, well, let's take a look inside. First of all, the cover is the best part of this book. I just, from my recollection of the book, the art was a really big disappointment. You do have a great story here by Neil Gaiman on two of the origin stories. This is Sam Keith Penguin. I just remember that being like the Sam Keith Penguin being really, really, really eerie and creepy. This is like a really disturbing penguin. How he becomes the penguin. It's really disturbing, but I remember that. Yeah. So he loves birds, and we got some Sam Keith, early Sam Keith work here. Batman. Then we got this Riddler book, also penned by Neil Gaiman. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good quality work in this. I just remember being underwhelmed by the artwork, and of course, what does ninth grade know about a book like, how probably the quality of a book like this in hindsight. Sure, the Neil Gaiman wrote a pretty good comic book. Just ninth grade me couldn't appreciate it. That is some pretty dope Sam Keith art right there, I gotta say. All right, so where am I putting the condition on this? Something like this. I'm gonna put it a solid 8.5. This is an 8.5 in my book. Again, with a press. Yeah, with a press, an 8.5. As is 8.0 with a press, 8.5. So I'm going to put it at an 8.5 and just italicize it. And that's the thing about grading, if you kind of understand what you're doing, have confidence in your grading, if you're going to ever sell the book, be transparent. Say, hey, you know what? I graded this book at an 8.5. You're free to look at it. If you think it's, even if they do come back with I think it's an 8.0. If they say I think it's a 6.0 or something, you get out of here. This is not a 6.0 comic book. if anything, it could be a 7.5. But it's going to be in that range, right? It's not going to be anything below a 7.5. It's just too good looking of a book to be anything lower than a 7.5. So at least it gives you sort of a, I think you should get to a point in your grading where you are confident that 9 out of 10 collectors would at least be in the same ballpark with you on that grade. I'm not going to say I'm better grader than anyone else, but I'm pretty damn confident I'm not going to botch a grade to a point where it's like so off. I can tell you if it's going to be a high grade, mid grade, or low grade. We can just at least fit in that bucket there and agree to disagree on the specific number. But that's pretty much what grading is, right? Just doing your due diligence and looking over the book and, having an eye for all the little issues and being able to frame that with a grade. All right, so Secret Orbits, what are we putting this at? I'm going to put this at an 8.5 because it just looks spectacular. 8.5, we want to put a little asterisk on there. And I'm just going to show it to you again how beautiful it looks. Beautiful copy right there. Love this cover. Love the artwork on this cover. All right, I guess I saved the best for last. For all you hornballs out there, prepare to be wowed. So the grade on this is actually, I want to say it's an Ehrman book. So I'm just going to put it at 9.4 to start. And as we look over the book, if we find things that support that maybe it's higher grade, we'll go higher. If it's supports something that's lower, we'll adjust. All right, so I'm looking at the surface of the book and it does need a press. It's not that there's a lot of issues, but it would just stand to improve. I think there's a couple of dimples there. There's a little, the spine is really clean. If I can show you the spine for a minute. It's really clean. So, I'm not seeing any stress lines on the front, at least. Nothing color breaking or corners are sharp. Looks beautiful. All right, so like I said, this is a very high grade book. We're going to take a look at the back. If there's any issues, it's like on this back part. And there's a little bit of a bend, nothing color breaking. So it does need a press. Corners are sharp. You got a little bit of a spine tick on the black portion there. Maybe 2 spine ticks. That one breaks color. Both break color. So 2 color breaking spine ticks on that black portion. The rest of the book is just, like I said, magnifique. So yeah, we got this really high grade. Look at that Mark Silvestri. Goodness right there, man. That's tight. That's very tight. All right. We are going to open up the book a little bit. I'm going to share the inside. We'll take a look. Let's see here. We got some Philip and Williams. We got Chiodo, Frank Chiodo. We got Mark Silvestri getting us right there. We got some Bloodshot. Garner. Got Terry Scott. Trying to see who that artist is. That's J. Scott Campbell. Oh yeah, that's another thing. This is, I think, J. Scott Campbell's first work in comic books. Forgot to mention that. Oh, there's a beautiful Jim Lee. Ooh, look at that. Adam Hughes. Some Adam Hughes in here. Not sure who that is. Looks great. But yeah, we got a poster size pin up there. Wolf's Portatio right there. Oof, good stuff. That Jim Lee pinup was, yeah. There's some more Scott Williams, Alex Garner. Who's that? It's more Trevor Scott. Who's that? Alex Garner. Got some Jay Lee. Wildcats, the trilogy coming out. That's like just a great ad right there. Brett Booth. Who's that? That looks dope. Is that Jim Lee? Can't tell. So, I just can't read a lot of they're not really giving a lot of artist information here. I'm sure it's somewhere, but boom. Okay, here we got it starring. They just tell all the characters there, not the artists. Oh, we have the artists here. I just can't. Yeah, I'm just not going to read it off to you. Got Scott Williams, Scott Clark. I can't read it upside down. Joe Chiodo. Anyway, a lot of just great artwork. I am going to put this at a solid 9.4 with the press. Possibly higher. Well, I just should 9.4, possibly a 9.6. But I'm gonna put it at 9.4. I mean, this is just to find this book in this condition for 33 cents is. I gotta say, this is just one of the top pickups of the year, just hands down. For the price, 33 cents. Not that this is an expensive book, but I was willing to pay like up to $10 for this. I just knew I'd find it in the wild for much less than that. And man, did our patience pay off. So yeah, really happy with this pickup. So Homage Studios Swimsuit Edition, Volume 1, Issue number 1. We are going to put this at a 9.4. And that will end our haul video. Let me just put this back in its bag and board in the Mylar. It's double boarded, so be very careful. Oof, almost close. All right, put it right in there and just keep it. I don't think I'll ever open that again. Just, you know, that Jim Lee splash page was really, really hot. I wish I'd taken a photo of that. I'm trying to find that online or something, but yeah, beautiful condition book. Just so happy with this. This is a gem of the collection. This is a gem in the collection. And something I will never sell. I mean, I would get graded if I thought there was value in doing that. If I figured I want, having this in a slab would add value to the book, I would do it. But I don't see value being added, so I'm not going to do anything of the sort. I'm happy to keep it raw because it's a near mint book. I don't need CGC to tell me it's a near mint book. And it's not like I'm going to sell the book. So it's fine to have it. Now don't, I do want to, there's a couple books in my collection that I would consider getting slabbed. Like my Superboy, First Lana Lang. That's a big book. I mean, having that in a grade and slab, I think would just be nice just to have. But those books are going to be few and far between. It's not like it's not like every book in my collection is First Lana Lang. It's just there's just a couple of books like that where you would probably, because it's a bigger book, you would want some kind of preservation or protection, and have it stand out as something special in your collection. But when you're doing that for every book, I just don't see the value in having CGC tell you it's a grade that you already know it's in, right? All these people, like when they submit their books, are like, it's a 9.8, and it comes back a 9.8. Then it's like, well, if you knew it was a 9.8, if you knew it was going to come back a 9.8, you send it in, and you just got it validated that it's a 9.8. Like, what does that say about you? It's like, wouldn't you just trust your grading to begin with? You have to have someone actually tell you what you think it is, what you know it is. Yeah, just learn to grade your own books and be content with that. Not everything has to be. Sports card's a little different. Sports card, I feel, is like that's something where you really, sports card grading and comic book grading I would, even though it's probably similar in concept, very different in execution, because in sports cards, they examine surface that you'd have to really magnify. They're examining it under a intense magnification. So that's time consuming. And there's a real exhaustive process on analyzing, the points of the card and all that. And again, if that kind of exhaustive effort is being done at CGC, then it's worth the money to grade at them. But again, that's not what we've seen. We've seen actually the opposite. They've just no quality control. Looks like they're just zipping books through, slapping grades, throwing around labels, throwing around books. I mean, do you really want to entrust your hard-earned dollars to a process where they still haven't really fixed it, addressed any issues? They're not being transparent on anything about their process. Do you really want to trust that company just because they branded themselves as the authority in comic book grading, which no one's really crowned them except the dopes that continue to send to them and put value in what they do. And I shouldn't say dopes, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, at the end of the day, you have to turn around and say, who's going to be the standard bearer for the grading of our hobby? And if you're continuing to think CGC is that, or if, again, it's a free market, there's a lot of services out there. If you're continuing to put value in what CGC does just because that's what was the trend for the past couple of years by all means, continue to buy into that branding. But it's for most of us, that's, I think, slabbing the days of slabbing comic books has come and gone. There'll always be a place for it, but the pace and volume at which people were doing it was a little bit ridiculous, especially like when you're never going to pay more than $2 for a book like this. But I see slabs of this and people try to sell this for like $50-$60. No freaking way. Just picked it up for 50 cents, and I don't need a label to tell me that this is a high grade book, an 8.5, and all that. So that's kind of what I do on this channel. It's like trying to make people see this exercise, as exhausting as it is. You should be doing it for your collection as well. Don't just bag and board it, put it in, catalog it. Have a spreadsheet, catalog it, have your collection, have it recorded, what book it is, the stats on the book, who created the book, and then put a grade on it. And in order to do that, you gotta put in your work. You can't just ship your books off and expect other people to grade it for you. That's not what this hobby is. This hobby is like, people give you the resources. If you're reading up on what these books are and who these writers and creators are and all that, and you're not reading up on how to grade your own comic books, it's just foolish. It's foolish. All right, we're going to talk some shock now. I feel like the X-Men series, again, people are still loving it. I think Rogue is, Rogue, we had a special episode where she just is the badass. She goes and just takes care of business on her own. I think she's now in the new X-Men. She's going to lead her own team. It just seems like the narrative on Rogue is kind of changing, and she's going to be more of a central figure in the X-Men. I'm down with that. She's not my favorite X-Men, but I'm down with it. You know, she does have a very unique ability to absorb other mutants' powers and render them useless for a little bit, which is really useful in that. But she's got to touch you, right? She got to physically touch you for that to happen. But yeah, I think that's a good mutant ability to have. So that's that. I know they came out with the Deadpool trailer, and everybody's been, talking about that. It looks like we got some more glimpses. They're bringing back a lot of the old Fox X-Men characters. We now know that Wolverine in this version has sort of a, he failed his universe, and it's a buddy movie. It's a Deadpool versus. It's not Deadpool versus Wolverine. I'm sure there's a portion of that movie is where they fight, but they eventually team up, and it's like a good cop, bad cop, or a buddy flick. So it should be very entertaining. I'm loving the yellow suit on Wolverine. I know they're going to put the mask on him at some point, so he'll be running around with the mask. And what else? Oh yeah, there's a baddie. There's a baddie in the Deadpool Wolverine, and I don't know too much details or too many details on who or what she is, but again, it's not like I'm gonna go and buy her first appearance or anything of that nature. But it would be interesting to learn more about her character and how she was introduced in comic books. I think the thing I'm looking most forward to is how other well, first of all, how they're going to introduce the MCU X-Men and how they're going to integrate sort of the older Fox characters and transition them out. That's what I'm seeing. It's going to be sort of this like passing of the torch from Fox to Marvel, right? Or I should say Marvel Studios. And it'll just be interesting how they do that. Is it going to be like, I mean, it's going to be done in a somewhat comedic, humorous manner, I would imagine, but just curious to know the details of how the characters interact and who survives and all that. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to, how it all kind of comes together and what we're left with at the end. What version of the X-Men are we left with at the end? What else happened this week? One thing I do want to touch on is I know I talked about Shohei Ohtani, and I mentioned when that whole scandal broke that I was in the camp to believe that Ohtani wasn't gambling, but that he was taken advantage of, and that that Ippei is the one that was responsible for the whole reaching out to this bookie and betting on games and all that. It had nothing to do with Shohei. It was all Ippei, and we're getting more details now that yes, this is the case. And it looks as though Shohei Ohtani, he has a very tight inner circle, small inner circle. He's a very private person, but at some point in their relationship, they became like good friends, kind of like business partners, or he gave Ipe a lot of managerial sort of control in his day to day and his and this guy was translating, mind you. So like when he was talking to the his accountants or his financial people, he's probably saying, "Hey, look, Otani's given me authority to speak on his behalf, so this is what I want done. I want 2 passwords. I want access to this." Again, he had just unprecedented access to really highly personal, private banking information, had access to his funds, and he was siphoning off funds to, again, take do partake in gambling, partake in buying sports cards, doing a lot of just shady stuff. Okay, so this has all come out. It's part of the investigation that the federal government's doing, but that's where these details are coming out, that this guy Ipe was really taking advantage of everybody in Otani's inner circle to make himself seem more connected with what Otani wanted. Again, he had the trust of Otani. Otani was just kind of blindly letting him kind of manage all this stuff, while behind the scenes he was um, lying and stealing and doing all these things. So um, it's unfortunate that Otani had to go learn kind of the hard way on how you shouldn't trust just anyone, right? Like, it's a hard lesson, but uh, anyway, he's got a good structure around him with the Dodgers. He's got a new translator. He's got a wife who's just traveling with him. I just hope this whole thing doesn't. It's not affecting his playing. The guy's just hitting out of. I mean, he's the best hitter in baseball right now. He's like first in slugging. He's first in like on base percentage. He's first in like doubles, and he's leading in hits, I think, right now. He's got 6 home runs already. I mean, it's just freaking ridiculous how incredible a season he's had. It's just early, but he's having an incredible season right now. He's worth every penny the Dodgers have paid for him. The guy Yoshinobu they brought is really hitting his groove. He just shut out the Nationals. Again, from on the field, everything looks like it's just working. It's just this off the field distraction. And again, I don't think it'll be much of a distraction because we've moved on. I think even all the quote unquote pundits and critics and naysayers and what is it, the conspiracy theorists, they're all like realizing, oh, you know what, maybe we were wrong. Maybe we were just talking all this smack, and there's a real villain here, and that's this dude named Ipe, who's he's become the most hated person in Japan these days. Ipe, a guy who everybody loved. Ipe, I loved Ipe, and then turns out the guy's a piece of real piece of work. I just like put it that way, real piece of work. All right, so if you have the time, just let me know what you think is your favorite book from this haul. I got some more books here. Wait, got the Onslaught book here, the X-Men book. So I got a lot of books here. Let me know what your favorite one from the haul is. As I mentioned, I have my designation of the books of the haul, and they're going to be these 2 books. These 2 books. This is I mean, they're both great finds. They're 33 cents, 50 cents. But this one today, again, just, it hit me really hard when I ran across this. I was just like, man, I was looking for this book. I wanted this book. It was like one of the like clear cut ball-in books that we wanted to add. And yeah, 50 cents, man. Absolute. And if that's not a freaking classic, iconic cover, I don't know. I don't know what is of those three specific villains. Just so and so right in the core of my collecting era. 89. Boom. Love these pickups. All right, so we were talking comic books. Yeah, we've got. Oh, yeah, I'm going to talk about this. Oonmyoung and I have been doing some behind the scenes planning for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. It's actually called Asia Pacific American Heritage Month, but I kind of refer to it as AAPI Heritage Month or NHPI, Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, because I think that's what the Biden administration wanted to call us, our community now. Again, I'm fine with Asia Pacific American Heritage Month, but boy, we've got a lot of great potential guests. We cast a wide net to creators in, Asian American or Asian creators. Some of my favorite, a lot of people Young likes, just cast a wide net, and we've had a few people respond, and we're just trying to kind of schedule things out at this point. But there's some pretty big names that we got. In fact, there's one guest really in particular I'm very, very excited about. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to him about. Now, I'm kind of at a disadvantage. I haven't read much of his stuff, but I should probably go check out from the library, or maybe grab a couple of his books that are out right now, and just kind of prepare to talk to him about. I want to ask some really thoughtful questions. I just don't want to be like, I do want to have him guide what he wants to talk about, but I want to be just like, really focused on getting him to think about like, the motivation for that character or the motivation for that scene. I want to be able to like cater around the specific book or scene. So we're going to have to maybe do some reading and research. But anyway, even if we don't, I'm sure there's enough to talk about. From a general standpoint, the guy is just, in my book, just an incredibly, let's put it this way, he is what's the word I'm looking for? He's a pioneering creator for the industry, so, and for the community. And yeah, he's got a bright future ahead of him. So it's going to be great. So we got that coming up. I'm not going to give details into, who we're going to have on the show. So you have to watch. We're going to do our first interview on May 1st with our boy, Ryan Odagawa. And Ryan Odagawa actually has, he's, he has a pinup in this book, which I want him to sign. I want to send him that book for him to sign. But yeah, we're going to be talking to him and his project and what the month means to him on May 1st, which is this coming Wednesday. That's going to kick off Asian American Pacific Heritage Month. So don't miss it. We're going to have a month worth of check-ins. I don't want to, we're not on every day, but we're going to have at least maybe twice a week. We're going to check in with somebody, either a creator, community member, and just really celebrate Asian Americans in our community, in our comic book community. I think, I would say comic books, there's a good deal of representation in our community in the comic book world, both within the industry and within our community, I think. But I think more can be done to kind of enhance and build presence there. So that's kind of what this whole project that Young and I do. It's a really a labor of love to just connect with people, is because we want to showcase, celebrate, and highlight who we are as individuals and our backgrounds. And yeah, I'm not going to sit here and try to say we're going to get every representation in our community on this channel. I wish I could do that. And we do try to keep it as diverse as possible, but again, we're just casting a wide net. We don't necessarily control people who respond and don't respond, but we try to get everybody who has responded on and give them, have our platform be a window into who they are. So that'll be fun. And and that's about it, for the upcoming week. Again, we're gonna kick things off with Ryan. I'm gonna definitely stop in at Hill of Comics again, probably spend another $2 there in the 3 for $1 bin. So pick up 6 books there for next week's haul and grade along, and we'll go from there. Hey Hung, what's up? I'm just talking about us, or you, and how we're getting ready for Asia Pacific America Heritage Month. That's a mouthful, but I'm kind of teasing them that we've got some pretty remarkable guests coming up, so it's worth their while to tune in and watch. We got Ryan Odagawa up on deck, and again, go check in with a lot of community members, and yeah, go from there. What you up to, Young? You're not in Seattle anymore, right? Are you still in I saw your last video was from Seattle, but you're not, I'm assuming you're not around anymore. Oh, you are in Seattle. Okay. How are you liking Seattle? You had some time to spend here now. I know your wife likes it here more than you do, but how are you liking it here? Right? You like it, right? I would imagine you like it. You've probably been to the Puget Sound, to the ocean, spent some time on the lake. Wait till you go hiking, Young. You got to go hiking. I know you probably don't like hiking, but if you it's good exercise, and Koreans love to do hiking. We're all about hiking. So, but we have some of the best hiking here in Washington. So oh, good. Nice. It looks like you're transitioning out here. That's good. Glad to hear that. Well, we'll get to do more comic book hunting. I just wish there was like a good bronze. Excuse me. I just wish there was a good Bronze Age LCS here for you to get books from. There's just not. Actually, Milk Eek might be a good, because if you don't mind condition, they got a bunch of Bronze Age books. They're just beat up. They're like in rough shape, but a lot of Bronze Age. Kosari, yeah, my wife and I did that too. We got a bunch of kosari. Which for those of you who don't know what kosari is, it's like this fern that grows wild here. There's a lot of it in Washington, and it always pops up around this time of year through summer. But there's a lot of it. So that's what you do on hikes. You go on my mom and I, and my dad, when we went on hikes, we would forage kosari and then cook it up, and it's delicious. It's a fern, but it has this like meaty texture. When you season it, it's good. It's good. My wife's not the biggest fan. She doesn't know how to prepare it quite right. So we picked a bunch of kosari recently, had it as panchan, but it didn't taste that great. I mean, it was still good. You can't really mess up a fern veggie like that. But it wasn't. Again, it didn't have that authentic Korean taste when she cooked it. Kind of had more of a Japanese like flavor, which is fine. We ate it, but yeah. So there was just, it was off. I'm not blaming my wife. I can't expect her to like cook in, like, have Korean cooking abilities, because that's not how she grew up. But it just wasn't the Korean recipe that I'm used to. So that's fine. And you just probably won't forage for kosari as much. She just doesn't seem to be a fan. I wasn't a fan of what we ate, so just won't do that. But yeah, there's a lot of kosari out there. It is great for bibimbap. It is great as a panchan. It's good stuff. Young, you gotta go squid jigging. I'm telling you, squid. You spend a couple hours, you'll get a bucket of squid, and you'll have more squid than you know what to do with. You can dry it, have it like as a, marinanju, and just, you can boil it and have it as with a chogochujang and eat it that way. There's so many ways to enjoy it. And you can even do calamari, like fry it up. Delicious. I had so much squid growing up. I hated it. But I realized in hindsight, like, we had dried ojinga, right? And I used to actually enjoy, and it wasn't like like the commercial stuff you get is really thin, and it's like really tough. It's like almost like rubbery. This ojinga, when you dried it, it was like dry, but it was like meaty and thick, and it just tore off real smooth, and it was just so ideal to eat. And I just remember, yeah, that was we were really blessed to have a lot of that available. Like I knew as a kid I just like hated it and I was sick of it, but now I would probably appreciate having that source of food growing up, which my dad went out in the middle of the night and caught so much we couldn't possibly eat all of it. We didn't even have enough to freeze all of it. We had to give it to our friends and community. So he caught a bunch, gave it out to everybody, like 7, 10 families, and they all froze it. They had more than they could really eat as well. He just caught so much. It was like, just come and get freaking squid, because we just have more squid than we know what to do with. So that was kind of like the our dinner tables. I just remember being sick of squid. I was just like, I'm tired of eating squid. Yeah, it's that's tough. That's tough. Um, I wouldn't buy a house out here. You've got a house. I'm just, you know, if you can afford it, just rent a nice place. They've got lots of new build condominiums or apartments out here you can rent. You don't need a big house or space. If you want, get a condominium. It's much less, and you don't pay as much in tax, and easier to manage, especially as you age. You don't want to deal with like mowing lawns and stuff, right? So uh, I wouldn't be set on getting a house. Just get what's right for you and your wife, just the two of you. So don't need a lot of space. If you just want to be out here, um, I wouldn't even I wouldn't even fathom getting a house. Just you know rent if you have to. That's the way I look at it. But I do understand, like, yeah, if you're gonna retire and spend time in a place, you probably gonna own it. But we'll see. Yeah, I hear that. It's all about what the wife wants. Um, I do hear that. Like, at the end of the day, it's not your decision. Not your decision, I guess. Yeah. So, in case you missed the Book of the Hall, Young, this is our Book of the Hall. Jim Lee goodness. There's a beautiful Jim Lee splash page, sexy swimsuit splash page in here. Yikes! Is that goodness? Goodness gracious! Oh man. Um. Hey, did you know? So I got this book a while back. Ryan has a pinup that he did in this book. Did you know that? Wildstorm swimsuit edition book. Not this book. This is a later edition. But yeah, this is Jim Lee back cover. But Ryan has interior pinups in here. So I'm gonna ask him to sign this book later. Send the book to him and have him sign it, and the interior part. I'm going to have him sign his pinup. You can sign the cover too, I guess, or maybe if you can, maybe ask him for like a small, like sketch or something in the interior of the book. That'd be cool. All right. Well, you want to hop on? I guess it's still early. Are you doing a stream? we got to pick up more Ryan Wildstorm books. I'm gonna get a bunch of Ryan Wildstorm books. I want to get one of him and like this one. This is a great example. I already have one, but pick up more of like Hit where he's done work or he's doing work with Jim Lee at some capacity, whether Jim's the editor or whatever. You know, obviously Jim's the boss, so everything relates to Jim Lee at on some level, but you know, where there's actual like credits with Ryan and Jim working on the same book. All right. Well, I know you want to hop on Sunday, right? Just to talk about the planning and stuff. So I'll see you Sunday if you don't have anything else. Yeah. Another cool thing tomorrow morning, check out Fanboy Pram's channel. He and Neil and sometimes other community members, they do a comic book battle. They choose a theme and they do a cover battle. And it's my, again, I don't, sometimes I'm up to watch it. Sometimes my son comes in and I got to stop watching and I got to focus on doing stuff with my son. But there's just a little window before Leo gets up and while I'm like kind of getting up to start my day when I just tune in and love that show. It's the best thing on Saturday morning, seriously. Right? My he's 4. He's 4. I'm going to turn 5 in September. Big age, 5. I think 5 is kind of like one of those milestone type years. He's going to enter kindergarten. Yeah, a lot of stuff to look forward to. Oh, cool. You have how many kids you have, Indy? Yeah. I mean, mine too, dude. So it's like, he just wants to play all the time with his dad, and I love it. I love that. So when he comes and says, let's play, I'm like, let's do it. And we just do all kinds of stuff. I just can't wait till he gets to a certain age where, maybe he gets into comic books. I'm hoping he does, but if we can do that together, that'd be great. I'm kind of like, I bought him a couple like, those like Marvel and DC for kids comic books. I think there's one like Spidey and his Amazing Friends or something, where he's with like Gwenpool and Miles Morales, and it's like a free comic book. It's good. It's like fun stories. There's like activities and games in it. So he liked that. But I really want to get him into Superman. So I'm kind of like, he knows Superman. And he knows Daddy likes Superman. And again, I think the Superman film is coming out next year. So I'm hoping it's like a PG rating so that we can go and watch that together. And it'll be this like cycle because, I was his age. Like I was like 5, I think, when I saw Christopher Reeve on the big screen, and that had such a big impact on like everything, like my worldview as a kid. And I'm just hoping Gunn does something similar with, you know, this new generation and with the new story that he's telling. And I think he will. I think he's going to do something really, really like cinematically entertaining for all ages. And so I'm hoping is Ghostbusters. Yeah, Ghostbusters, you know, when we were young, Ghostbusters was the hit movie of that decade, right? Like everything was Ghostbusters. You had t-shirts, you had that song, the Ray Parker Jr. song, and people running around like with the ghost packs and stuff. They had that cartoon, the Ghostbusters cartoon that came out a couple years later. That was just a great movie. And they had like two Ghostbusters movies. They had a sequel in like '89 or something, a couple years later. But that wasn't as successful. But yeah, it was that first movie was just so entertaining. Again, one of my favorite movies as well, Ghostbusters. Bill Murray he's just so good in that movie. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. It's so I get why you would be upset if the female surfer, serval surfer was female, but there will be the real Silver Surfer. So there's two, quote unquote, there's two quote unquote Silver Surfers. There's a female version, and then there's the Norrin Red that we associate with Silver Surfer. So this female character is actually a separate Silver Surfer. So we're not getting just a female who's going to carry the torch. No, she's like just one of the two Silver Surfers that we're going to see. So I think you're okay. Don't stress out about it. Yeah, she's her own little Marvel character. So there's actually a Marvel character, a female like version of the Silver Surfer, and that's where the rumor of the casting and all that is. She's playing that specific character, but they, the real Silver Surfer and her have a relationship. So if they're introducing her, you know what that means? We're gonna see the real Silver Surfer as well. So awesome. Yeah. No, I mean, I get why you'd be like, man, they turned Silver Surfer into a woman, and like they gender swapped her. I get why that would be upsetting. It'd be like doing that to Wolverine or somebody, right? And then they did do it to Wolverine, but gets a separate character, right? So that's kind of where what we're gonna see, I think. Speaking of Silver Surfer, that reminds me, people are kind of sleeping on Fantastic Four, right? And I mean, I shouldn't say sleeping. I guess depends on where your focus is, but I just want to remind people, Fantastic Four is slated to come sooner than later, right? Fantastic Four is actually going to come before the X-Men. So that's something like there's not a lot of buzz being built around that. I know they introduced Kang kind of to set all that up, but people hated Kang. And they had, I think right now, the dude from The Mandalorian, um, what's his face? I'm blanking on his name, but the guy who plays Mandalorian is playing Reed Richards, and that not my first choice for Reed Richards, to be honest. But we'll see. That was a big kind of like, is this going to be good kind of indication. Nothing against that actor. That actor's great, but he's not Reed Richards. It's like you've got like people in your head who you think could play Reed Richards, and for me, um, that actor's not him. It's really tough to, I think, cast for Fantastic Four. Um, it's tough. It's like you kind of have to. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Right? Yeah. He's just not. It's just not built to play like physically, or you know, like physically, he's just not built to play Reed Richards. Reed's a tall, lanky guy. You gotta get a tall, lanky guy to play Reed, and you gotta get, just a, a just a wholesome, like girl next door image to play Sue Richards. Um, you know, Johnny, you gotta get. Would make a great Johnny, the guy who's in Top Gun. Um, he played the Val Kilmer, the young Val Kilmer like character in the Top Gun Maverick. He would make a great Johnny Blaze. Um, Kind of that arrogant, like, you know. Uh, and then Ben Grimm, man, that's a. I don't think it'd be tough to get a voice actor for Ben Grimm, but the CGI, how are you gonna make that work? That's a tough challenge right there. Um, to get the rocks, looking like it's not fake. That's a tough assignment to get a CGI thing, because I know that you could do it with the Hulk. They did a great job with the Hulk, but they need to make that happen with rocks, you know. And I don't know. We got to kind of see it to believe it, but I'm sure they'll. You can't put the thing in a costume like they've done in the past iterations. It's just not going to work. You got to do a CGI thing, but it's got to be convincing. Yeah, Nova. We'll have to see if they bring Nova. Like there's all these like variables on like which characters we're gonna see. They teased Adam Warlock. I think he's now a Guardian member now, so they kind of teased him as like potential character we'll see again. Um, but Galactus will be another character. Like, how do you bring that to the big screen? How do you bring Galactus? He's obviously going to be CGI, right? But like, what extent of CGI do you make this gigantic? Like God. But yeah, I think you can expect to see Galactus, right? Um, So I think you're gonna see Fantastic Four. You're gonna see the Silver Surfer. You're gonna see Galactus, and you're gonna see all these things come to light, and people will either love it or hate it. It's not gonna be a universal like I love it. Unfortunately, Marvel's kind of making the decisions now to where people love it and hate it. Um, you know, just gonna get that kind of division, unfortunately. But I'm really looking forward to Superman. Really looking forward to Superman, and right now, all indications are there's not much. Gunn is not revealing much. He's revealed a portion of the costume. We have a lot of the cast members. We kind of have a sense of um, who, like how they're going to set up, because there's going to be a sequel, right? So they're setting this up as at least a two-parter. But how we know Lex Luthor's in this first film, but he's not the antagonist. So how does the relationship manifest itself to where he does become the antagonist in the second film? That's going to be an interesting character arc or transition to see. Like, how does he go from, I would assume he's going to be friends with Clark Kent at some level, which is a departure from the original comic book movie I saw, where Superman meets him and he's just the villain of the day, right? But their true history is that they grew up together, they have a close relationship, kind of like the Smallville series, right? And then something happens to that relationship where the real smart guy, the smartest guy on the planet, hates Superman, hates the strongest guy on the planet. And that's, I think Gunn is setting us up for that. And that's, for me, because that's a new dynamic, something we haven't seen in the Warner Brothers, like Christopher Reeve movies before, that will really define this new era character. I'm curious to see if Lana Lang will show up. Where will Lana Lang be in this narrative? Like, they're not going to focus on origin story at all, right? They're not doing an origin movie. They're kind of just like, hey, everybody knows Superman. You know the backstory. When we show Clark on the farm, you know the whole backstory of him being adopted and all that. So they're just kind of putting that to bear. I'm sure they'll write that kind of they'll bring that history in through dialogue and all that, but it's not going to be like, you're not going to get a play-by-play description of that origin. It's just going to be assumed. So those are the kinds of things that I'm just really excited to find out how it unfolds. I just finished season 3 of The Boys, and I think season 4. I think they're on season 5, maybe. I'm not sure. I think they're in the middle of season 4, or maybe they're starting season 5. But season 3 of The Boys, let's put it this way. It's entertaining. The Boys is entertaining, but it's it's essentially Donald Trump with superpowers versus this sort of like, he has the right intentions, but he's his obsession with killing the soups is his one flaw, I guess. His and so for me, that dynamic that they're trying to play off, like this guy wants to kill him versus this powerful guy who's just this sort of like political, the person everybody wants to hate kind of person. I don't know. It's not enough for me to care all that much about this series. It'll be something I will watch, something I will just get a mild amount of entertainment value out of. But like for me, it's not a compelling series. Like I just need more from the two characters and those just really sort of superficial like motivations, right? And yeah, it's really violent, and I just don't feel like the characters have a lot of depth. Let's just put it that way. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Butcher's character, he had some. He's dealing with the guilt of his brother's suicide, who killed himself because his dad was physically abusive. Like that's horrible, but it's like I don't know. That's not. Is that enough for me to feel sympathetic and want to follow this character through his little mission of trying to kill superheroes? I don't know. Like, it's he's a flawed sort of hero, and again, not a lot of depth there outside of that little tragedy. So I shouldn't say little short. It's a very traumatic and tragic thing that happened to him, but it's like we just got a lot of dysfunction on that show. And anyway, I saw it. I didn't particularly get a lot out of the season 3. And now they've got this sort of like they're kind of back at square one. They had a chance to kill him, they didn't kill him, and now they got like a father and son duo to contend with in season 4. So they're setting it up with a lot of nuanced things to look forward to. It's season 4, but it's ultimately just kind of running around in circles to the main event, which is going to be like, Homelander versus Butcher. So no, I never watched Walking Dead. And I know people really enjoyed that. And I know it's a comic book. Just never got into it. You got The Boys, number 1? Yeah, that's a big book. Big now because of the series, but it was a good, it was like a good. I think this kind of genre of like shocking sex violence, like in comic books, or just the violent themes that run through these kinds of comic books is kind of where a lot of fans and comic book readers, that's kind of the space they're in. They want more stuff like The Walking Dead. Everybody's like looking for that next big Walking Dead type hit. You see these indie comic book companies putting out similar, kind of like um, theme stories where, there's just a lot of gore and violence and a lot of demented, just crazy ass, like villainous people, um, over the top kind of villainous type people, um, which is fun. And yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing more of that. I just thought for me, like again, if the boys were more like the comic book, I think it'd be fine. It's just they're trying to turn the boys into this like series now, and then they gotta build up. You gotta have these like characters, and you gotta give them motivations, and you gotta keep that like cycling as sort of the driving the plot of the story, driving the, like, and that it's just like there's not a lot of substance there with what they've created and what they've written. Um, it's got a bunch of like just shallow ass people, a bunch of like moralless, shallow ass people on that show. Like the Homelander's like assistant, like the fact that she's like tasting this power as an executive now. They just like it's just like, and like they just like they've created her, and now she's like this comic relief, and she's doing all these like like again, there's just not a lot of substance to her character. She just seems like I'm power driven. I love, I'm scared of Homelander, but I've also loved this kind of like having this power and doing all these things and having this control over the situation, and protecting that brand of the company. It just seems like that's what you'd expect from again a character with those. And again, that's a lot of what the show is. It's just a lot of these characters that are kind of like one dimensional. They fit in this box, and they're gonna portray that to the very end. You're not going to see any kind of growth or transition. They're just going to play that little box character and up until the final battle. And that's those characters are what people kind of tune in for. And you get that week to week, and you get them in new situations, but that's it. And when it gets to that rhythm and stuff, it's just like what to expect. Nothing surprised me at the end of that show or at the end of that season. You all saw it coming, and shows like that are just it just gets lazy. There's just nothing at the end of the day that's like, wow, what did I just see kind of thing. It's just like, okay, yeah, more of what I've seen on previous shows kind of thing. So what I'm really want to watch, which is what it's prompting me to think about getting the Netflix again, will be the Dark Tower series. And Hyung, I know you. I don't know if Hyung's still on, but I'm really looking forward to that, the Dark Tower series. There's a situation where these characters, they got a lot of depth, but they're also on a journey, and they're being transformed, and they're changing, and the relationships are changing, and but at the same time they're all focused on the same thing, right? They're all focused on getting to the tower for their own kind of reasons, and destroying that source of evil, the man in black, and destroying that. They all kind of adopt, really Roland, their leaders, mission, I guess. They all join that goal or mission to help him, and they become a family in the process. So, you know, that's in the book. It was such a, you know, like Stephen King really did an amazing job of crafting this universe and setting these pieces in motion to where they come together and they forge this like bond, and you know, they go into battle together and they win together and they lose things along the way, um, that just makes them stronger. Like that's a real, it's a real yarn that he's weaving there. And so I know, like, you can't mess that up. You can't, the, it's not like they're writing week to week and trying things out. And like, you know, it's like there's a set structure there that King's already put in place. As long as you just remain 85% true to what's that content, that source material, it will be good. Especially if you add the special effects and the big guns, and then, you know, like, just add all of that into a live action series, and you're just going to have, you know, television, or what is, I should say, streaming gold right there if you do that effectively. Sweet Tooth, I will check it out. Thanks for that recommendation. I'm not into modern books these days. You know, I just kind of, I'm a back issue kind of guy. In fact, I don't read comic books all that much now. If I do, I'm checking something out from the library, and I'm kind of skim reading it through. I mean, what's the last thing I read? I read the Dark Metal series, Capullo Snyder Dark Metal series, and I was not impressed with that one. The Krakoa X-Men, the Hickman run, I was very into that one initially, and then I read more of it in the subsequent, as it branched off into the various titles, and it got dumb in the middle. Got really dumb in the middle. I'm trying to think of something really good. Oh, I liked. I mean, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked Tom King's Supergirl, Girl of Tomorrow. I liked that one. That was good. You know, it was just a nice little adventure he put there together. Good story. Very, very, you know, like, I would say it's like not what you see in comic books every day. You know, it's pretty, again, the way he built the character was really thoughtful. Kara, because we don't really get that sort of woe is me, like, I hate the world kind of Kara. You know, we just kind of get this, like, you know, she's introduced us as like, hey, you know, they destroyed my planet and I'm here. I'm the new, you know, orphanage girl or whatever, and I'm solving crimes in my spare time. Like, we got this like happy-go-lucky like Supergirl, but, you know, like, you know, we didn't get this sort of angsty, really strong at the same time, but, you know, just, you know, a closet full of, like, you know, demons, being raised, you know, essentially as the survivor and orphan on Earth. So that was a good series. Yeah, kind of took no expectations into that, and it ended up being really entertaining. I think I like Tom King's as a writer. I think Tom King writing is. I'm not gonna say I've read everything he's read, but what I have read, it's been pretty good. So, um, I should probably read more stuff. To be honest, I when I read Superman Legacy, I've been hearing good things about it, so I'll probably check that out at some point. All the stuff from when I collected, I read. So like I read. Actually, I didn't read all of the Onslaught series. I only read the first couple issues leading up to the Onslaught. It's like actual introduction as he was forming. But all that post Age of Apocalypse stuff, so even 2099 stuff, I read some of that. Read all the Age of Apocalypse stuff, all the stuff leading up to Age of Apocalypse, back from I would say Byrne Claremont through most of the heavily in the Silvestri run on leading up to the Silvestri run. All of that stuff right there was like my wheelhouse for X-Men. Got that week to week for the most, not every issue, I should say. Tried to keep up with most of it month to month, as I could. But, you only got so much of a budget. I was just trying to get what I could and reading that. So it was very intermittent and sporadic, but it was good stuff back when I was collecting. Okay. No, I enjoy comic books. I really should spend more time, and just hard to find, especially when I'm like collecting and just talking about books on the weekends. I could probably reserve this time to actually read comic books, but I'm actually just cataloging and just sharing what I what's being added to my collection. Which again, we've added 2 beauties to my collection this week. 2 beauties, and yeah, I mean, you could flash big keys in front of my face, and I still would value these 2 things, these 2 books, higher than anything right now trending. And that's just who I am. Like I got a very specific collection. I've got now 308 Jim Lee books and counting. I live in the 90s, like Image era, or in that 90s era of collecting. I kind of lived there. So there's not a lot of value in what I collect, but I don't care. But at the same time, there is a lot of value in that era as well. I don't want to like make it sound like no, like it's a worthless. No, there's a lot of big books in that era, and I try to collect those as well. I'm trying to think of a case in point. Let me just go dig a case in point here. here are a couple case in points, I guess. I mean, not that this is a big book, but I mean, everybody went out and got this copyright. It's Charles Vess cover. That was a no-brainer for comic book collectors. This I got recently, but it's a book we all read, The Starlin, Death in the Family. We all read this back when we were collecting, and we killed him off. More people wanted him dead than alive. This is a must. I mean, if you're a comic book collector, it's like required reading, right? My first print copy. And this is the book that I think made people hate Superman. Frank Miller is the sole reason why people are just indifferent to Superman, because he just put the idea in people's head that Batman's cooler. Batman has a real agenda. He's not a sellout. He's not a political sellout. He's not, like they make Superman really douche. He made Superman really douchey in this book, and that stuck for some reason. The previous 60 years before this book, or what is 60 years, or no, we're at 80 years, so what is it? I'm trying to do the math. This came out in the 80s, so the previous 40 years prior to this book of the character, 50 years I should say, 50 years. The previous 50 years of Superman, this book, Superman is beloved, the hero. No one would ever put Batman above, as equals to Superman. Batman was always sort of like the disco dancing, the actor's name's not coming to me. Adam West, the Adam West, Batman character, spandex and all that. That was who Batman was prior to this book. And then this book and the movie just made Batman ultra cool. And it flipped the script. And then now Superman was this sort of like character people didn't care about because he had all these powers and was kind of, again, branded as a sellout in this book, and it stuck. I'm just waiting for all that for Gunn to undo all that. He's got to undo all that, because everybody who can read a comic book has read this book and just kind of adopted that narrative, which is bullshit. It's a bullshit narrative. So as much as I love Frank Miller, I hate what he did to Superman's character. Got this book. This is a great pickup. I picked this up for, what did I pick it up for? Like $5, which is insane. I picked this book up for like $5 this summer. An insane deal. I mean, it's an 8.0, it's a 7.5 8.0 all day long, probably higher, probably an 8.5. Beautiful copy. I mean, for $5, I can't believe I got it for that. I'll collect stuff like this. I don't mind collecting an Ed McGuinness Red Hulk first cover. That's, to me, it's not my collecting wheelhouse per se, but if I can I bought this, I got this for $15. I'll buy that for $15. So I'm not completely void of wanting to add big keys and modern keys, or I'm not immune to some of the trends and things that are getting hyped. I mean, why did I buy this Onslaught book? Like the X-Men 97, everybody's wanting to kind of spec on what's going on in that series, and they're kind of looking at the back issues, and they're looking at books like this. I'm no different. Like, this is a book I did want. I wasn't terribly focused on it, but I'm being influenced by all the sort of X-Men hype right now, like anybody else. So I love that that's happening. I love the fact that X-Men 97, they're bringing back the the storylines I grew up reading. Inferno, Love and Death. Like, they're bringing back all these like classic X-Men stories that aren't the Byrne Claremont. It's more like just a lot of it's the Claremont run, but I'm just saying different artists, different periods of that run. And who doesn't love to see the Gambit Rogue, romance? Who doesn't love to see that 90s team come together? And again, Psylocke's coming. I'm telling you, you're going to see sexy Psylocke. Get ready for it. So, Onslaught. Let me tell you about. So, I think today's comic books are better written than the comic books from the 90s. I'm just going to put that out there. Not to say the writing was bad in the 90s, but I just think the quality of writing in the industry now is just overall better. So if you're really into modern books and you like the stories you're reading in the modern books, temper your expectation on the 90s books. Just temper it a little bit. It's Lobdell. I think Lobdell and Wade wrote a lot of the Onslaught series. Nothing against those writers. They're great writers. But it's kind of like they have to sell you on sort of the absurdity of like what's happening, right? They got to sell you on that, and it's a lot. There's a lot of absurdity happening in it, right? It's just a lot of like like these like mutant powers and energies and all, and these a lot of it's just like, what? It's kind of like wizardry and magic and stuff, and you just they got to sell you that, hey, this is a real thing. Whereas I think modern books, they don't try to sell you on it. They already get you to accept it, and they're building they're building a universe and a real sort of real world connection to that, to make it more believable without selling you. They're just like kind of like, hey, we're in this situation, and it just naturally develops. They're not trying to convince you that this is a real thing. It's just, so I think that's a difference in terms of the writing. The approach is different. Like in the past, they just like put out a term and just, you'd be like, oh, what's that? And they kind of explain it, and then you just gloss over that fact. These days, I think they take a little bit more of an academic approach on as to what people can believe and won't, and they try to stick more to like the basis of like real science, right? You're gonna like real scientific terms and explanations of what something is, which is a little bit more like believable and easier to follow, and has like a weighted depth to it, as opposed to like, oh no, this is just like something we we termed like, you know, like the space warp crystals or something, you know, like it's just like, what? You're selling me that? All right, I'll just accept it because you at least gave it a name and you talked about what it could do. I mean, that's still, I guess a lot of that still happens in comic books to this day, because that's what comic books are, right? To escape from reality a little bit. But I'm just saying, prepare yourself. That's you're going to get a lot of that in the Onslaught series. But what makes it great is what they do, how they create Onslaught, and what Onslaught represents, and why he's so powerful. Because again, like that manifestation is what it creates all the tension, because you know they're like, you know, this big baddies come in to collect, and so, you know, every sort of crisis that the X-Men enter into, there's that element like that build up. Okay, this is what we're up against. How are we gonna take it on and win at the end of the day? That's pretty much the formula, and that's what Onslaught's great. Um, they got it. You've got a real nice setup of what the villain is, and then how everybody comes together to fight. And again, you got Bone, you got anemic Bone, real Bone, not adamantium Wolverine, but Bone Wolverine, running around like a crazy person in that series. It's quite entertaining. It's quite entertaining. You'll like it. Yeah. All right. So if you like the older dialogue, then I think you'll like it. Again, I think that today's the modern comic books are just written a lot with a lot more thought. Um, you know, it's not just like they're not one dimensional characters. You've got like more depth, kind of more of a backstory, more like build up and dialogue into uh, the mindset of the characters, what motivates and drives them. These early writings is just like, hey, you get, they're just creating the scene. They're just basically building the scene, and kind of just explaining everything, like almost to the point of over explaining what you're seeing, what we're dealing with. And it's just all kind of laid out for you in the you know, like in the dialogue. And that's kind of like that's kind of like, you know, it's not smart writing. It's just like, here's the story. We're telling you what's happening, as opposed to like building the universe, building the relationships, building all this, like that there's like a more creative, compelling element when you tell a slow form story versus trying to tell everything in like 2-3 issues and have the action propel what you're presenting to fans. So that's again, I think a flaw that it's a I think the 90s pushed comic book storytelling forward, but it didn't do it in the best way, because you see a lot of examples of just really like, just, you know, like, I don't want to say the process is rushed, but you get a sense like, hey, look, I got to put this comic book out. You draw the pictures. I'm just going to give you something where we can, like, you know, put together a story with, introduce some baddies, talk about why they're bad, and just have a big battle at the end. And that's what you see time and time again through the 90s. I think as more and more like talent in the writing department came up through the ranks, it forced people to one up what they're reading previously. So that's what you've had. You've just had years of people one upping each other. Now you just got quality, you know, you just can't bring any writer into the book into a book, you have to like vet really the top writers. People have written in different genres, different voices, different styles, and give them the assignment, and they do it. And that's where the editors come in and say, "Hey, this is good stuff," or they say, "Hey, you know what? Try again. You got time. We're only going to put you on the book if you write something compelling." And so that's where we are. I think it's just a better process to how comic books are built now versus previously, and that's what you're seeing. That's why I consider modern writing better. You just have better writers than. And again, nothing against like Lobdell or Wade. It's just a different era of writing that improved on a worse era of writing. That improved on a worse era of writing. It's like comic book writing is just increasingly gotten better. It's gotten more, I guess, adult oriented. It's gotten more cerebral. It's gotten more, it's become more diverse, right? You're just getting different styles and different kind of like, taglines of writing. So that's what I appreciate. Like, it's not kind of like all the writing back then was just sort of like kind of uniform with approach, but today it's so different. Like, you can have a one-off type comic book. You can also have a comic book that's built, maybe 4, 5, 6 issues, maybe 10 issues, where the story is progressing at its own pace. It's not dependent on, hey, you gotta have you got the action's got to rise and fall in this one book. No, you can kind of layer it and have it translate in a later book. You can have a comic book with absolutely no action, just building all the layers, and then have it translate into something really impactful later. And that's why I think the modern writing, that's where it succeeds. It's like it understands the pacing better, and it kind of works like a TV series in that sense. Like, you're kind of introducing these episodic type stories that all build toward toward an integrated sort of outcome. That everything is a piece or a building block toward some final piece, rather than it be linear. It's sort of like this like mosaic of building blocks to a tower or a peak or a goal, whatever. But yeah, I would recommend Onslaught. With having said all that, at the end of the day, I would recommend Onslaught. You're gonna like it. It's just classic comic book entertainment enjoyment. You're gonna get X-Men. You're gonna get a lot of yeah, you're gonna get a lot of the stuff you love about X-Men, but kind of in a new, everybody's going through some new changes and new, especially Wolverine. Wolverine in this series is like, he's freaking nutcase. That's what's fun to see. Like, you get sort of like wild child, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, wild child Wolverine, like unhinged Wolverine, basically, who's not as powerful as he used to be. So, kind of cool. All right, well, I'm gonna stop blabbing and let you guys enjoy your weekend. Just end you with some like candy there, some eye candy. Some classic stuff right there. And we'll call it a night. Thanks for hanging out, Indy. Hope to see you back here soon. And yeah, looking forward to following you. And hopefully your channel has some content out there I can enjoy. And let's connect soon. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.